All right, all the way live on this light, snowy Monday morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to Feedback, a positive image production by Hood Research. My name is Theo Broughton, co-founder of Hood Research, and my co-host,
The BD, and we welcome you to the program.
Oh, yes, this is going to be such a good morning. A lot of information that we want to share with you. And I want to thank those of you for supporting Hood Research. And for those of you who are thinking about it, please make your check or money order out to Hood Research. Or if you prefer, you can make it out to R.J. Watkins Broadcasting. We have no objection to that, but we do ask that you mail it to Hood Research at P.O. Box 4416, Detroit, Michigan 48204. Again, that's P.O. Box 4416, Detroit, Michigan 48204. Now, I want to say that this morning we have with us Michael Imhotep.
Yes.
And also, if you log on to hoodresearch.org, you will see him and his locations on there as well. Hood Research has an email, contact at hoodresearch.org. Contact at hoodresearch.org. And our telephone number is area code 248-234-2371. Again, that's 248-234-2371. Now, Michael Imhotep, thank you
Yes.
for joining us this morning.
Hey, thanks for having me, Theo.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about who is Michael Imhotep.
Well, I've been on WHPR many times in the past. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. I'm the founder of the African History Network. Our website is AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. I've been here a number of times before in the past, and I'm in a number of documentaries. The latest two documentaries I'm in are Elementary Genocide Part 3 with Professor James Small and Professor Kaba Kamene, formerly known as Booker T. Coleman, and Dr. Boyce Watkins. And that's Elementary Genocide Part 3, Academic Holocaust, which deals with fighting against the school-to-prison pipeline and educating African-American children. That's from Director Raheem Shabazz. And then also Black Friday Part 2, the Living Legacy World Tour, which connects our African global legacy, African history, to economic empowerment. That's from Director Rick Mathis. Okay, and also write articles. I'm also on 910 AM, the Superstation as well. Do radio here in Detroit also.
Okay.
The African History Network show.
Okay, well, this morning we want to cover 3 subjects, I believe.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we wanted to talk about Tavis Smiley and sexual harassment allegations against Tavis Smiley and others. We've seen a deluge of that taking place. We've seen the hashtag #MeToo movement go viral. And it was actually, the campaign was actually started back in 2006 by Tarana Burke, who's an African-American female activist from Philadelphia, but it's been hijacked by white women, basically. Okay,
Well,
so she's been pushed to the side. So when
Sounds like affirmative action once again.
So when Time Magazine a week or so ago, when they had their Person of the Year, and it was the Me Too movement, right? And they had the people on the cover. She was not on the cover of Time Magazine. Okay, so we've seen a number. We know this morning on Good Morning America, Tavis Smiley did an exclusive interview to talk more about the allegations and what's going on. I actually wrote an article about this on my platform dealing with Tavis, and I did a video on my YouTube channel about it as well. We want to talk about that. We want to talk about the Alabama Senate race, the special election in Alabama, which is very significant for African Americans because this is an instance of African Americans standing up and fighting back,
Right.
and understanding how politics impacts every aspect of their life. Okay, and they organize, they mobilize, they help finance a lot of their own initiatives, and they supported a candidate whose policies best matched up with what their issues were. Okay, and they were successful. So we'll talk about that, and then also talk some about Kwanzaa. We know Kwanzaa is coming up day after Christmas, December 26th to January the 1st.
Yes.
And I'll be the keynote speaker at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History.
Okay.
December 27th, the second day of Kwanzaa, which is Wednesday, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Free event. Everybody come on out, Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History.
What time?
6 p.m. to 9
6
p.m.
p.m.?
Yes,
Okay.
I speak somewhere
The
around, I think
27th,
7:15 p.m. I'm on the schedule to speak. So my presentation is what is Kwanzaa? Reconnecting African Americans to African culture for self-empowerment in the Trump era.
Oh, wow. Now that sounds powerful.
Yes.
People need to know that they should have pride in our own celebration between Christmas and New Year's.
Well, absolutely. Well,
Okay.
people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future to meet the needs of the community.
Oh, okay. All right. So now, with the first segment, it just seems to me that there is I don't know how to say this something different going on between Pennsylvania and other parts of the country.
1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. That's D.C. No, in the state of Pennsylvania.
State of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, there
Okay.
are some males that have been sexually attacked, but it's not being treated the same as the females at was it Michigan State?
Okay.
U of M.
Okay, so you're talking about on college campuses? You're talking about on college campuses?
Well, in general, it's happening in the media.
Okay.
It's happening in politics. As you know, John Conyers has been accused, and he has stepped down.
Right. So you're talking about
So-
sexual harassment allegations against men? Oh, okay.
As
Okay.
well as, yeah.
Okay.
Originally, it seems there was more about women, but now all of a sudden there's something about young men in Pennsylvania. So,
Okay. I'm not exactly familiar with that case specifically in Pennsylvania.
I just heard about it this morning myself.
Okay. Well, what's going on right now, a lot of this started with Harvey Weinstein. We see a year or two ago, we saw allegations against Bill Cosby, but a lot of this deluge and a lot of this purging started with Harvey Weinstein. We saw allegations of Harvey Weinstein that have been rumblings in the entertainment industry for years. We saw he had to step down. Actually, the board voted for him to be removed from his board position with his company. And then we've seen numerous ones after this. We've seen it hit politics. We've seen Representative John Conyers, who retired. Okay, we've seen Representative Trent Franks, Republican out of Arizona. We've seen Representative Blake Farenthold, a Republican out of Texas, who settled a $84,000 sexual harassment lawsuit with taxpayers' dollars. Now, he's worth $5 million. He settled this with taxpayers' dollars. He's announced that he's not going to run for re-election. We see Representative Bobby Scott. Just this morning in News One Now, they talked about this Representative Bobby Scott, Congressional Black Caucus, allegations against him. Now, those seem somewhat suspect because the woman who's bringing these allegations, she's had 7 lawsuits in the past involving sexual harassment. Two in Chicago, so so that seems somewhat suspect. Okay,
Sounds like she got a job, but go ahead.
right. We've seen Senator Al Franken step down, and we saw members of his own party, members of the U.S. Senate, Democratic members of the U.S. Senate, call for him to step down. And then we've seen it through entertainment. We see 10 allegations against Russell Simmons of various types of sexual misconduct and rape. And we see Tavis Smiley. So it's a number of these taking place. And I'm all for believing the women, but the reason why, but there should be investigations into each one of these allegations also.
Yeah.
You know.
The most recent I heard this morning is Chris Matthews.
Well,
on
yeah.
MSNBC.
Well, that happened back in 1999 with Chris Matthews. So that settlement was $32,000, something like that. That happened back in 1999 with Chris Matthews. TheHill.com reported on that. He hosts Hardball on MSNBC,
Right.
and this was a settlement. Since then, he was reprimanded. It was handled within MSNBC. Okay.
So he'll still be on the air.
Yeah, that was already handled. That was 18 years ago.
Well, you know,
About
it
18
seems
years
to
ago,
me
so.
that there's a small group of women who are taking advantage or making up or intentionally want to climb their way to the top horizontally, that make it bad for the larger group of women who have pride and respect for themselves. And then when they come out to express what has happened to them and ask for help,
Right.
then the focus goes on that small group of women that are, what does somebody say? Garden tools. We'll go ahead.
Garden tools, okay.
So-
Well, what happens
That's
is
what they call
the majority of the sexual harassment, rape, sexual misconduct allegations that women make, the majority of them are true. There's a smaller percentage that are false. That smaller percentage of those who make things up for whatever reason taint the larger percentage that are telling the truth.
Exactly.
And then we also know that studies show the majority of women who face various types of sexual assault, molestations, or rapes don't come forward for various reasons. It's even more prolific with the African American community, with African American women, because then their sexual habits, their sexual history oftentimes comes into play, which brings in stereotypes about African American women and sexuality, which goes back to slavery. So there's a different dynamic when we deal with African American women and sexual harassment, sexual misconduct, things of this nature.
You think that's why they didn't put the African American woman on front of Time magazine?
Well, I don't think it was that. I think it's, well, Time magazine is a white-owned and controlled publication.
Yeah.
And you know, it's appropriation. It's cultural appropriation. She should have, if she should have been definitely on the cover of Time magazine. And now some people said Colin Kaepernick should have been Person of the Year as well. Okay, which I, you know, that's another good person. But she should, they had a number of different people on the cover, right? Because of the Me Too movement. But she should have definitely been on that cover with them.
Yeah.
We got a couple of callers.
Oh yeah, sure.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name and how you're viewing us, please?
Morning, wonderful show. This is Dee Dee.
Thank you.
I'm viewing you guys on my cell phone.
Oh, good. Go ahead.
Okay. Quick question. One, I'd like to ask your guest: do you think this is going to lead to women losing the power that they have in the boardroom? I.e., we're going to go back to being girl Fridays because the men are the powerful men are going to say that I don't want these women here. And what about the Stephen Henderson that came out this weekend?
Right, this past week. Detroit Free Press, yeah. So Stephen Henderson was fired from the Detroit Free Press. There were allegations made in the media by a radio talk show host. And the Detroit Free Press investigated these allegations, sexual misconduct allegations, sexual harassment. They found them to be credible, and they fired Stephen Henderson, who was a writer a columnist for the Detroit Free Press. The Detroit Free Press had a big article about this past week.
Isn't he the same one that's on America's Black Journal?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's Stephen Henderson.
Is it still there? You know,
American Black Journal, I don't know. Free Press,
They
no.
took they're not going to be coming on for the rest of the year.
Oh, okay.
Well, they may
that's
they may go on hiatus for the holidays also. A lot of shows are going on hiatus and running reruns this time of the year as well. Okay, so I don't know what type of action has been taken by PBS locally. Okay, for American Black Journal. To address your first question, what's your name, sister?
Dee Dee.
Dee Dee. So to address your first question, no, this is not going to become. No, this is going to empower women in the workplace because you're going to see more
really
sexual harassment lawsuits filed.
I think they're going to try and make us barefoot and pregnant again.
No. You should read blackenterprise.com, read New York Times, Wall Street Journal. No. If you look at what happened with Bill O'Reilly, Bill O'Reilly was the golden boy of Fox News. Bill O'Reilly had the top-rated cable news network TV show for years. Bill O'Reilly was ousted. He was fired by Fox News. Why? Because the New York Times revealed that he and Fox News settled 5 sexual harassment lawsuits in the past for $13 million, number one. Number two, organizations like coloratchange.org, which is an African-American organization, led to fight to get him off the air. What did they do? They put pressure on advertisers. So you had 80 advertisers that withdrew advertising dollars from his show, and Fox ended up firing him. This was after Roger Ailes, the founder of Fox News, was ousted out of Fox News, the organization he founded, because of what? Sexual harassment lawsuits and settlements he had to make. You've seen a number of sexual harassment lawsuits come out since then against Fox News. So no. There's no turning back from this. All this stuff is coming out.
We're looking not at Jerusalem, not at Israel, not at North Korea, not at what's going on in the East part of the world, but we're looking at these things that are going on right now. Sylvia, I wish Sylvia is listening. She could call
let me put it to you like this, sister. I don't know. Let me put it to you like this. Let me put it to you like this. I do media. Okay, I monitor 35 different news sources on a daily basis. Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, ABC, MSNBC, CNN, TheRoot.com, Atlanta Black Star, YoBlackWorld.net. I write articles. So in the news outlets that I deal with, especially on a national basis, they're covering all those stories, and they're covering the $1.5 trillion tax cut that is about to pass the Senate and the House. They're covering all those topics.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling.
Dee?
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he just told me thanks for calling. I thought he told me to hang up. Okay. All right. I think my last thing, I'm a female. You're not. All I'm saying is it took us, Theo, and you know this, it took us a long time to become CEOs and to get education and all of that. We're talking about from the 60s and the 70s on up. And I'm just afraid that some of these people are going to throw these things out here, and at what point, okay, Bill Riley, but what about if they go after somebody that's over him? Is that person going to start their own white male movement?
Right.
Women?
There may be an attempt to do that, Dee, but there also may be an attempt to hire gay men. Then they don't have to worry about that, right?
Oh, that makes sense, Theo.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
calling.
Bye. Let's go.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name and how you're viewing us, please? You're on the air, caller.
Okay. My name is Bertrand.
Could you speak up?
My name is Bertrand.
Go ahead.
Yes, and I'm viewing you guys on Facebook.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you for calling.
Not a problem. I'm actually calling from Biloxi, Mississippi.
Okay,
Biloxi,
cool.
Mississippi, thank you for calling.
Mississippi.
No problem. I have a few starting things that I want to bring to your attention as far as the solutions for our people.
Solutions, you say?
Excuse me?
Go
I
ahead.
can hear you. Okay. Yes, pretty much the solution for our people as far as our conditions that we're in currently, not only here in Biloxi, Mississippi, but worldwide. Basically, I've been through some personal experiences myself that's enlightened me some information that I would like to share with you all as far as to what we can do as a people.
You want to do it off the air or what?
Well, I don't have a problem looking for live broadcast, but along with I just want to convey my message.
Okay, well, go ahead. Just speak up. Go ahead.
Okay. First thing, I feel that if we all would come together as a people like we're doing now, like you all are doing live broadcasting, and giving the people information that they need, and then we understand that if we come together and do just one thing, I feel would make things better for us as a people. And that one thing that I'm suggesting is a world movement as far as with our people. It's a peace movement. It's not nothing violent about it. It's basically a be still movement. That's what I want to suggest to our people, because when we get out and we're marching in these streets, putting ourselves at risk, armed way, and people are getting assaulted, insulted, hurt, lives being lost, these things are not necessarily have to happen. So what I'm suggesting is that we have a be still date, set a be still date, and we don't do anything. We don't support no businesses that we don't agree with. We don't go shopping McDonald's, Walmart, any of that. We don't even have to use electricity if we don't have to. It's just more so what I'm looking at as far as to present to the people is that go home, stay with your parents, or whether you got your grandparents or home with your families or whatnot, and be still like scriptures they do. I'm a spiritual person, but this is what I suggest. If we be obedient to what God has told us all to do, and that's to be still and know that He's God, instead of us out here doing everything that we're doing now, then even the atheists that say they don't believe in God, He'll reveal Himself.
Right.
And he'll
Okay.
handle these situations that we're dealing with now.
Hey, brother, we appreciate your comment. I would encourage you to read articles at AtlantaBlackStar.com, AtlantaBlackStar.com, because they deal with movements, initiatives of African Americans all across the country and outside of the country as well. And they hit on some of the things you're talking about. They talk about organizations that you can connect with also as well. AtlantaBlackStar.com.
And thank you
Atlanta
so
Black
much
Star.com.
for calling and sharing. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, caller. You on the air? Would you share your name and how you're viewing us?
Hello, this is Tawana.
Good morning. Thanks for calling.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Yes, I believe this situation that's going on. It's about politics, I believe.
Yeah.
Everybody whose name is in this hat, I believe, should be revealed. The government has the names. Everybody that's in this hat should be revealed. I believe this is a political thing. I am a victim of sexual harassment through the Detroit Police Department. Through all I went through, it's not an easy thing to live with, but hopefully the things that I have been through help the police department educate those inside the police department to be a better person and to learn to respect women as a equal person.
Mm-hmm. That's
I'm
true.
going to hang up and listen to your comments and relating to going forward.
All right. Thank you so much
All
for
right.
that. Mm-hmm.
Thanks for calling.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so, and also Tavis Smiley, when we're talking about Tavis is fighting these charges against him as well. Okay, so it's important for people to know his show has been suspended by PBS.
Right.
And he's fighting these charges. He's not employed by PBS. They distribute his show. He owns his own production company, TS Media. He has a management team that manages his company. Okay, so it's important for people to. People can read my articles at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can check out the article and watch the video I did about the Tavis Smiley case. Thanks for your call, sister. Also, but we have to understand that we have to make the workplace safe for everybody. And
Right.
there's been a history of women, especially African-American women, being demeaned and sexual harassment and things like this. And a lot of those charges are not brought about because one of the things, and then we'll move on to the next topic, one of the things that takes place is that when you have a situation like Representative Blake Farenthold, for instance, $84,000 sexual harassment lawsuit, the woman who filed that suit can't find a job. She's been blacklisted. She can't find a job. When you study these cases, a lot of times
That's
the
why.
women who are the whistleblowers are the ones who get the worst end of the deal. The man will stay in the job. They pay a settlement. She can't find another job because she blew the whistle.
Oh, wow.
So that has to change also.
Oh, I agree.
And I think that kind of addresses what Dee Dee was saying. Is like, would this be a setback for women? As you say, she's been blackballed, but again, the movement has so much momentum now.
Yeah,
more or less
see,
like an avalanche.
She was blackballed before this movement gained steam.
Right.
Now people are finding out about this. They're finding out, wait a second, these women did the right thing and came forward.
Right.
Now they can't find jobs, and the man stays in his position. So you're going to see a reversal of that.
Right, and I think that is interesting that Steve Henderson doesn't get a lot of attention because they say he's related to some high-profile person.
Well, he's local also. Stephen Henderson
Yeah.
is local as well. Most of these other ones get national coverage, okay, for various reasons, but he's local.
Yeah.
So the next topic, U.S. Senate special election in Alabama. So this was huge, and the reason why is, first of all, contrary to popular belief, now the African Americans in Alabama, when you actually study what they've done, they are more progressive and have more sense than a lot of African Americans across the country because they fought back and they said, we're not going to take this. Now, Alabama has been, Doug Jones was the first U.S. Senator to be, first Democratic U.S. Senator to be elected in Alabama in 25 years. Okay? Alabama is a Republican state. It's a Republican-dominated state, Republican governor, Republican-dominated state legislature, all right? Donald Trump won the state of Alabama by 30 points in the 2016 election, okay? Alabama has the highest incarceration rate in the country. It has a very high poverty rate as well. Okay, in Alabama, so African Americans make up about 27% of the population.
The whole state?
In the whole state, about 27% of the population in the state of Alabama.
Wow.
You have to remember, it's in the South. Alabama was one of those former Confederate states that seceded from the Union to fight against the Union to keep slavery intact.
Got it.
They had rampant voter suppression and rampant voter intimidation that took place. Okay, and they have voter suppression going back to at least 2011 with the implementation of the voter ID laws. Okay, so now there's
I didn't know that many black people had enough courage to leave Alabama, but go ahead.
To leave Alabama?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, we know Rosa Parks was ran out of Montgomery, Alabama after the Montgomery bus boycott. And she comes to Detroit, Representative John Conyers hired her, right? She was, white supremacists ran her out. Now, back during the Civil Rights Movement, African Americans called Birmingham. I mean, they called Birmingham Birmingham because they bombed so many houses.
Oh, yeah.
So Dr. King's house was bombed 2 days before the lawsuit of Browder versus Gale, February 1st, 1956, which was the lawsuit that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court that ended segregation on the buses in Montgomery, Alabama. Okay, his house was firebombed. E.D. Nixon, another organizer who was with the NAACP, his house was firebombed. Right. So I met a sister named Rose Sanders, who's an activist and organizer in Alabama. I met her at the 20th anniversary, is in October, 20th anniversary of the Million Woman March in Philadelphia. And she was on News One Now with Roland Martin. I wrote an article about this. The name of the article is called Rose Sanders, R-O-S-E, Threatened with Death for Organizing Black Voters in Alabama in 2017. So she talked about, she talked about how she was organizing African Americans to vote in this special election for Doug Jones, and a white man snatched her the voter information she had in her hand and threatened to kill her. Okay? This is going on in 2017. So Doug Jones lined up with African Americans' issues when it comes to criminal justice reform, when it comes to fixing the Affordable Health Care Act as opposed to repealing it, which what Roy Moore wanted to do. There were a number of different issues where Doug Jones lined up with their issues. People should read the article from NBCnews.com. Moore versus Jones, where the Alabama Senate candidates stand on the issues. Moore versus Jones, where the Alabama Senate candidates stand on the issues. And there was a big article from the New York Times that talked about the rampant voter suppression. This was the day before the election, December 11, 2017. It's called The Alabama Senate Race May Have Already Been Decided. The Alabama Senate race may have already been decided. Not only do they talk about the rampant voter suppression, but they also talk about the voter disenfranchisement because of the state felony disenfranchisement law. So because Alabama has the largest incarceration rate, you have about 15% of the African American population that can't vote because they have felony convictions. Okay,
it's even when they come out of prison.
Yeah, when they come out of prison.
Here, I answer because here, if you're incarcerated but you have not been convicted yet, you can still vote.
Yeah. You haven't been convicted.
They don't talk about that too much,
right.
but you can vote. Okay.
Right. Well, the other thing is in Alabama, you had a narrowing of the article says a new law narrowed the list of disenfranchising crimes that would disenfranchise people from being able to vote. But a federal judge ruled this past summer that the state of Alabama is not required to inform people with convictions who could not vote under the old law that they can now register to vote under the new law.
Like they can in Michigan. Once you get out of prison, serve your time, you can vote.
Yeah, you go through the process to do that. So African Americans in Alabama fought back. They stood up, they organized, they helped finance a lot of their own initiatives.
Yes.
And they fought back. And when you read reports, you look at the article, because there's a video in the article with interview with Rose Sanders, and there's also an interview with another sister who's with an organization that organized in Alabama as well. Her name is Dewana Thompson, creator of the Woke vote program, okay? And they talked about how this is a victory here, but they're already planning for the next elections. They're staying mobilized. They're not stopping.
They need
okay?
to come to
They're going after state houses because the state positions, the state legislatures are kicking our behinds across the country.
Oh, tell me
okay?
about
You
it.
got about 32, 33 states where the state legislatures controlled by Republicans.
Listen, and the governors.
And the governors,
We're down
about
to
33 states.
32. We lost one, thank God. Got 32 governors. 50 states, 32. That's all
Exactly,
it is.
exactly. And what people have to understand is that when Republicans gain 38%, when they gain 38 out of 50 state legislatures, now you can amend the U.S. Constitution,
I think
which is
that's
what they want to
were
do.
headed for,
That's what they want to
headed
do. They want to amend the 14th Amendment,
uh-huh.
okay, of 1868. So we don't understand. See, politics, two ways to understand politics, then we'll move on to the third topic. Number one, the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. The legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. Number two, the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. And politics impacts every aspect of your life.
That's right.
And our vote meant more to Republicans than it did to us. That's why Republicans fight so hard to suppress our vote. We don't understand that. They spend money to suppress our vote across the country. Okay? And there was rampant voter suppression in the 2016 election cycle. We don't understand this. The cross-checking system created by Chris Kobach, former Secretary of State out of Kansas, knocked 1.1 million people off the voter rolls. Most people don't even understand how this works. It knocked 54,000 people off the voter rolls here in Michigan.
Right.
And Trump won Michigan by 10,704 votes. And they're going to use that in the midterm elections November 6, 2018. So we have to understand how these things work. And and you hear some people say wealthy people don't care about politics. The only people who say that are poor people. Only people who say that are poor people. Because wealthy people, look, research Robert Mercer, research Sheldon Adelson. Okay, they care about politics.
That's why they funnel money into campaigns.
And you know what's interesting about that? They have to care about it because they have, the lobbyists. You got special interest groups and everything.
Absolutely. That they fund.
They're up there in Washington for the specific purpose of influencing legislation, introducing legislation, and so they have to have it's a definite interest because it affects their bottom line overall.
Well, there was 6,000 lobbyists involved in writing this new tax bill. Okay, the one that passed the Senate was 479 pages. This new one that came out of reconciliation is 1,100 pages.
Damn.
It's 1,100 pages, okay? And most of the senators and members of the House of Representatives that are going to vote Tuesday and Wednesday, it looks like, have not read the full thing. They've read summaries of it. It's going to be horrific.
They have no idea.
And then the next thing they're going to do, Paul Ryan has already said this, House of Representatives, Speaker of the House, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to gut Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security because they want to go after entitlements. And that's going to hit African Americans all across the country. Okay, this is an example of how elections have consequences. This is what I told people. I warned people what would happen if Donald Trump became president.
And I don't call them entitlements.
Well, no, I don't call. That's what they call them.
Yeah. Talk about entitlements. You think about corporate welfare.
Oh, absolutely. Which costs more each year than Medicaid and Medicare and things like this. The corporate welfare. Okay, but because these are things that their lobbyists fight for, it's all right. So the corporate tax cuts from the rate from about 35% down to 21%, that's permanent. The tax cuts for the everyday person, those are temporary. They expire around 2025 in this new tax bill.
Now, what I want to do is allow you to get to the third topic before we take calls because the lines are full. But I want we really need to know at least the gist of what the third topic is, and then we can address the callers. So just stay on the line. We'll get to you.
Well, the third topic deals with Kwanzaa. So we know Kwanzaa is coming up December 26th. It's a 7-day African-American Pan-African holiday created in 1966 by Dr. Maulana Karenga and members of Organization US. And it celebrates family, community, and culture, And Kwanzaa is celebrated by somewhere around 20 million people around the world, heavily most of the largest concentration would be in the United States. And it comes out of the Black Freedom Movement, the Black Power Movement, Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s. Okay, and Kwanzaa, contrary to popular belief, is based upon first fruit harvest celebrations coming out of various cultures in Africa. You had them in ancient Kemet. You had them in Nubia or Ta-Nehisi. You have them amongst the Yoruba in Nigeria, amongst the Akan in Ghana. You have them in South Africa, different things like this. So it's a time, you have 7 principles of Kwanzaa, known as the Nguzo Saba, and it's the time to celebrate these principles of unity and self-determination and collective work and responsibility and cooperative economics, etc., and to take these principles from the old year into the new year. So it's from December 26th to January the 1st. You can celebrate Christmas if you want to. It's not a religious holiday. It's a cultural holiday, regardless of what your religious persuasion is or if you don't have a religion. You can still practice and celebrate Kwanzaa. The Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History is celebrating Kwanzaa all 7 days, December 26th through January the 1st. You can visit their website, theright.org, W-R-I-G-H-T, theright.org. And I'll be there the first 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It's 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. It's free and open to the public. One of my teachers, Dr. Claude Anderson, is the keynote speaker on Friday, December 29th. He'll be here. Unfortunately, I'll be in Atlanta on Friday for a premiere of Black Friday Part 2 at the Shrine of Black Madonna in Atlanta. But I'm the keynote speaker on Wednesday, December 27th, second day of Kwanzaa. It's 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And once again, my presentation is on what is Kwanzaa, reconnecting African Americans to African culture for self-empowerment in the Donald Trump era. Okay.
I like that. You know, our people have not quite gotten it in their heads, I guess, that approximately 95% of their income is being spent outside of the community in which they live. Yeah, about 97%, yeah. Yeah, they got to make that connection.
Well, the foundation is history and culture. Two of my teachers, Professor James Small and Dr. Leonard Jeffries, talk about how it's your history and culture that gives you your values, your interests, and your principles, your VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. They influence your economic empowerment and your political empowerment. So we have to have a synthesis of all those. It's not just one. When you look at any of these great African empires, these great African nations, whether it's ancient Kemet, Ta-Nehisi, Songhai, Ghana, Mali, whatever it was, they didn't just have history and culture. They didn't just have spiritual systems. They had controls of economy. They could grow their own food. They mastered agriculture. So there were a number of different things. They had a political structure as well. So it wasn't just the history and culture. Okay, so we have to have a synthesis of this. And the most important thing, we have to take our minds back. Stephen Biko, Bantu Stephen Biko said the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So we have to take our minds back. This is why a people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future, because things happen in cycles.
We need to talk to them about media too, movies, episodes,
well,
TV.
I've been studying media for 25 years. Media, Malcolm X said the media is the most potent weapon. I mean, he said the media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the ability to make the innocent guilty and the guilty innocent, and that's power because they control the minds of the masses. And last night on my show, and we broadcasted this on Facebook Live, so people can go to our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. The African History Network, where we have 1 million followers all around the world. On my Facebook fan page, you can watch the video I did last night, December 17th. New study finds news outlets promote false, negative portrayals of black families that don't match reality. Despite government data disproving them, news outlets perpetuate stereotypes such as welfare queens and absentee fathers. So this was a joint study from colorchange.org, which I mentioned a few minutes ago, and another organization, Family Story. Okay, and they looked at 800 news stories from various news outlets across the country, and they found how African Americans are disproportionately shown as being criminals, showing our families as being dysfunctional, and they show white people less as criminals, even though the majority of the crimes in the country are created by white people. Okay, so it's distorting our images, and your thoughts create feelings, your feelings create actions and behaviors, your actions and behaviors create results. So then they show the link in here to how African American families have been pathologized. So then what they want to do is then go after quote unquote entitlement programs like welfare and Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security. Okay, they show a direct line between the distortions of images in the media and then politics. Once again, politics impacts every aspect of your life.
We'll go to a couple of calls. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name and how you're viewing us, please? Hello, caller. You're on the air. And could you speak up?
To raise and distribute resources to support advocacy for average people. That has never been more important than today. We need to have money stored up specifically for the types of things that are necessary to improve our advocacy. We need to lay out the rules for that and get that kind of thing done. Bring in professional fundraisers.
Are you on speakerphone?
Tell him he have to call back. Go to
please call back. Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you share your name and how you're viewing us, please? Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Yes.
Good morning. We hear you well.
Okay, I'm viewing you on Comcast 91. This is Brother Malik. Want to wish everybody happy holidays. And Theo, thank you for the package. Speaking of Stephen Henderson,
yes.
If I can go back, Brother Imhotep.
Yes.
Go ahead.
A reporter called me last night to inform me that he is still working at WDET, which is
Radio
public
station.
radio, 101.9 FM, but is ran and operated by Wayne State University, and that he's still being paid his $90,000 a year salary
Who is he related
through
to?
Wayne State, which explains to me why the Free Press, under his tutelage as the senior editor or whatnot, has not done any coverage whatsoever about the abominable rate of Wayne State University of recruiting Detroit public school students, Detroit students, and black students, and students of color. The abysmal rate of reaching out and retention, the abysmal rate of professors of color at this college, that the Free Press has never done one story with all that's gone on or tried to be gone on in the last 2 years of Wayne State about this. You know, we talk about Penske and Gilbert, but we give Wayne State University a pass, and they're right in the heart of Detroit. So I wanted to share that information with you all.
All right, Mr. Malik.
All right. Do you know who Stephen Henderson is related to? Why they're covering? They're covering for him. He's related to some high-profile person in Detroit.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thanks.
All right. Thank you all for the knowledge.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank
sir,
you.
brother.
We have to find out some more about Wayne State. Okay,
And his family.
next. Right.
Hello, caller. You're on the air. Would you give us your name, how you're viewing us, and a quick question or comment, please?
Kurt, Channel 33 in Detroit.
Thanks for calling, Kurt. Go ahead.
You know, when I listen to this gentleman here, it makes it sound like when you say they're suppressing us on voting and everything else, I've often heard the expression that the white man is causing all our problems. I mean, that would lead one to believe something like that. And like you, I do a little study in history myself, man. With this voting scenario going on, is there anything, this is a question, is there anything we can do for ourselves without depending on politics and politicians and voting for the mayor? Is there something we can do outside of that instead of waiting 4 years on somebody else to do something for us? I think our main problem is we have become too dependent on others. You understand? Even here in America, you spoke of it yourself. We didn't have these problems before we come in contact with others, of taking care of ourselves. So I know we're paying out a lot of money in taxes and everything else, but there's something else we need to do besides waiting on them to do something for us. We need to do something for ourselves right now. This is an emergency for us. I mean, I see things just falling down all over the place, especially in my neighborhood.
Don't be
There's
discouraged.
got to be something else we can do besides relying on voting. Voting don't seem to be getting it. I know it's important. I do it because others believe it'll work. You understand? That's the only reason I vote, because they believe it. But I don't think voting will get it. We need to be doing something else besides that to become a little independent of
that's an excellent question. Let it
mayor and
all
all
right.
that.
All right, thanks for your call.
Thank you, brother.
So
Thanks, Kirk.
when I don't know how much of the show that Kirk saw, but we're talking about way beyond voting. Okay, you have people in cities that are majority African American population. The majority of the people who should be politically empowered are African Americans, because you ain't gonna go to white communities and see the majority of the people there that control the contracts, that run the school board, things like this are anything other than white for the most part. Okay, so as I stated, the foundation is the history and culture. It gives you your VIPs. It influences your economic empowerment and political empowerment. It's not just about voting. I said we have to have a synthesis of that. Okay, we need to embrace principles from some people like Dr. Claude Anderson. We need to look at blackenterprise.com, AtlantaBlackStar.com, read those articles, focus on redirecting at least 10% of our dollars with African American owned businesses. If you look at an article that I think I wrote one last year, but Carrie Cadet out of Brooklyn, New York, comedian, for December 26, 2016, the first day of Kwanzaa, she and two other people organized what's known as a Kwanzaa crawl. She took the concept of a cash mob, combined it with Kwanzaa. They organized 1,700 people in 3 weeks, and they went and supported 16 businesses, 16 African-American owned businesses on one day. They redirected thousands of dollars to these African-American owned businesses on one day. They organized 1,600 people in 3 weeks. Okay, this is something that churches can do or organizations can do, redirecting dollars, and you have to leverage those dollars to push your agendas. It's not just voting; it's actually mobilizing and pushing your agendas. Okay, and part of that deals with redirecting dollars to our own businesses to. So we can own the land in our community, own the businesses, employ our own people, and become the number one employers of our own people, like every other ethnic group. But politics is very important. Every ethnic group understands this.
I'm just going to throw this out here real quick, because I appreciate the question that Kurt posed. And when I think about, and as you know very well, that we have over $1 trillion in disposable income.
Well, not disposable. It's $1.3 trillion economy. Half of that is about half of that is disposable.
Okay, so $500 million in disposable income.
Somewhere about $500 billion.
Which is not directed correctly. So I think that's another point, as you say. I agree. Politics is the aspect of, but we have to do both and not either or.
You have to have a synthesis of it. It's all three of them. You study African nations that we talk about, the dynasties, things like this. They had control of all that. They had control of the gold mines, the salt mines. They grew their own food. They had control. They had political systems, and they had the history and culture. They had a synthesis of this.
You know, what's interesting to me, and we got maybe a minute and a half left, is that consciousness seems to be our problem. We don't have the consciousness. I mean, you do.
That's the foundation.
I do, but we don't have that consciousness, and it's particularly the way, let's just say, the media influence, social media, etc.,
right,
hip-hop music, all those things that are pushed, don't push consciousness. They push individualism, which has always been our problem, because I've always looked at us as a communal group as opposed to an individual group, but Western ideals and philosophies and behavior is more individualistic as opposed to communalistic.
Well, it's designed to dumb you down. Whatever's disseminated becomes imitated. It's designed to dumb you down. People should read that article from Washington Post. News media offers consistently warped portrayals of black families, study finds. Okay, and visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Follow us on the African History Network on Facebook, and you can order my DVD lectures from our website. If you want to support the African History Network, you can make a donation. Click on the yellow donation button on the homepage. You can also order my DVD. I have 35 of my lectures on DVD as well. And you can read all the articles are right there, and we have audio podcasts on my radio shows there as well.
Okay. Wow. This hour went really fast this morning.
Yes.
I want to thank those of you for tuning in, and we will be inviting Michael Imhotep here again.
Thank you.
My name is Theo Broughton, and as I say, it's not necessary for you to know everything. What is necessary is for you to know how to find what you need when you need it. We at Hood Research seek out as much information as we can to help us all make better informed decisions.
If you want to be nothing, do nothing. But the only problem with doing nothing is you never know when you're finished.
I know that's right. And we thank you so much.
Hey,
Michael,
thanks for having me,
for
Theo.
being with
Appreciate
us.
it.
And for those of you tuned in, please tune in again next week. Peace.
Peace.
Detroit, Highland Park, Michigan.